This is the final episode of our creation series. In this episode we will learn where our ancient ancestors came from, how the earth divided, and where all these different animal species and ethnicities came from. We will learn how science actually proves the Bible is accurate. I will include some science as a comparison to God's Word. As we go through Genesis, we are going to learn some very interesting things, like how was all this created? Who was Adam and Eve, and where was the Garden of Eden? Did Noah really get all these different animals on the ark? Where did our ancestors come from? Do Nephilim exist today? And much more. Be sure to subscribe so you'll get notified when new videos are posted. So, let's learn how the earth got its population.
Genesis 9 verses 18 to 21. And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem, and Ham, and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. These are the 3 sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. And Noah began to be an husbandman, and he planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine, and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent.
Noah had 3 sons, Japheth, Shem, and Ham, and they each had a wife. All of whom were in the ark with Noah and his wife. From these 3 sons the earth was repopulated after the flood. The Bible does not say Noah had any other children before he died. Up to this point we know we are all related to the first 10 generations of Jesus' lineage since all others died in the flood. Therefore, we all came from one of these 3 men. We found a single variant that shows how 3 ancient lineages came together about 48,000 years ago, plus or minus only a couple of hundred years. After the flood, Noah grew a vineyard and started making wine. In another study we will see that drinking is not a sin. The sin comes from the actions that drinking brings us to do. Now, Noah, being drunk, passed out naked in his tent. Despite biblical references to winemaking starting on the slopes of Mount Ararat, now in Turkey but visible from Armenia, scientists currently consider a cave about 100 kilometers away as the birthplace of viticulture. In 2007, near Arini, archaeologists discovered the world's oldest winery, dating back 6,100 years. Nakhchivan is the capital of the Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic, an independent region of Azerbaijan that shares no common borders with the mainland country. The city was reportedly founded by Noah, and although this claim cannot be verified, its 3,000-year-old history makes it one of the oldest cities in Transcaucasia. Nakhchivan is bordered by Armenia to the east and north, Iran to the southwest, and Turkey to the west. Archaeologists believe these areas are the oldest village and the oldest vineyard in the Ararat region where Noah and his family would have began their new life after the flood.
Genesis 9 verses 22 to 24. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his 2 brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment, and laid it upon both their shoulders, and went backward, and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine, and knew what his younger son had done unto him.
Alright, now there are some who believe that Ham molested his father. No, that is incorrect. Remember what Adam and Eve did after they ate of the fruit of knowledge of good and evil? They covered their nakedness. Being seen naked by anyone other than your spouse is a sin. In this manner, Ham caused the righteous Noah to sin. It brought shame upon the family. Instead of covering his father, he went and told his brothers. I'm sure he was making fun of his father the whole time. This lesson shows us how as Christians we can cover the sins of others, or we can go out in the world making a big deal of others' faults, making fun of them, judging them instead of helping them. Ham could have covered his father and no one would need to know. That's not to say we shouldn't correct others, but we shouldn't go around like we are better because they messed up. No one is perfect.
Genesis 9 verses 25 to 27. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant.
Obviously, Canaan was already born at this time. As we will see, Canaan was the youngest son of Ham. Maybe that is why Noah chose to curse him since Ham was also the youngest. Another interesting bit about Canaan, his mother. Back in Genesis 6 verse 4 we learned that there were giants in the earth before the flood. God said, and also after that. These giants were from angels mating with human women. One theory is that these giants may have had a pituitary mutation, the AIP gene, that caused them to grow larger than normal. Hormones secreted from the pituitary gland help to control growth, blood pressure, energy management, all functions of the sex organs, thyroid gland, metabolism, as well as some aspects of pregnancy, childbirth, breastfeeding, water and salt concentration at the kidneys, temperature regulation, and pain relief. Studies show that this AIP gene is hereditary and carriers may not show signs of the mutation. We see several giants in the Bible after the flood. The Bible shows that these giants started as descendants of Ham. Noah's family didn't have this gene. His generations were perfect. So, it is more likely Ham's wife that was a carrier since these giant nations were descendants of Ham and his wife.
Genesis 9 verses 28 to 29. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years. And all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died.
Noah's tomb is located in Nakhchivan. There are other tombs that are believed to be Noah's, but to me they don't follow the region Noah would have been living at over 900 years old.
Genesis 10 verses 1 to 5. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, and Madai, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshech, and Tiras. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Riphath, and Togarmah. And the sons of Javan, Elisha, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families, in their nations.
By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands. This is where the Caucasian people came from. English, German, Irish, Swedish, Russian, etc. When Japheth's family moved away from home they headed to the northern land.
Genesis 10 verses 6 to 20. And the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Phut, and Canaan. And the sons of Cush, Seba, and Havilah, and Sabta, and Ramah, and Sabteka. And the sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. And Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. Out of that land went forth Ashur, and builded Nineveh, and the city Rehoboth, and Calah, and Rezin between Nineveh and Calah. The same is a great city. And Mizraim begot Ludim, and Anamim, and Lahabim, and Naphtahim, and Pathrusim, and Casluim, out of whom came Philistim, and Caphtorim. And Canaan begot Sidon his firstborn, and Hate, and the Jebusite, and the Amorite, and the Girgasite, and the Hivite, and the Archite, and the Sinite, and the Arvadite, and the Zemarite, and the Hamathite. And afterward were the families of the Canaanites spread abroad. And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as thou comest to Gerar, unto Gaza, as thou goest, unto Sodom, and Gomorrah, and Admah, and Zeboim, even unto Lasha. These are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations.
These cities had known giants, all of which were descendants of Ham. It was almost like Canaan tried to create a huge family to prove his grandfather's curse wrong and be greater than Ham's brothers, even taking over the area that is the promised land that belonged to Shem. Most of Ham's children eventually moved to the southern land, Africa.
Genesis 10 verses 21 to 31. Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth the elder, even to him were children born. The children of Shem, Elam, and Ashur, and Arphaxad, and Lud, and Aram. And the children of Aram, Uzi, and Hul, and Gether, and Mash. And Arphaxad begot Sulla, and Sulla begot Eber. And unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days was the earth divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. And Joktan begot Almadad, and Shalef, and Hazarmaveth, and Jerah, and Hadaram, and Uzal, and Dikla, and Obal, and Abimael, and Sheba, and Ophir, and Havilah, and Jobab. All these were the sons of Joktan. And their dwelling was from Mesha, as thou goest unto Sepharim mount of the east. These are the sons of Shem, after their families, after their tongues, in their lands, after their nations.
Shem moved into the Middle Eastern region. From Shem came the Israelites and the lineage of Jesus Christ.
Genesis 10 verse 32. These are the families of the sons of Noah, after their generations, in their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood.
Eber had two sons, Peleg and Joktan. In the days of Peleg the earth was divided.
Genesis 11 verses 1 to 4. And the whole earth was of one language, and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth.
Everyone shared the same language after the flood, which would make sense because they were all from the same family. Some found a place to settle in the land of Shinar, today's Iraq, so they built a city. They wanted to build a tower reaching to heaven with hopes that God would see them as special and not separate them. It is also believed that they wanted to build a tower up to heaven to make themselves gods. Some believe that Canaan's grandson, Nimrod, was the leader of these people. Micah 5 verse 6 tells us that the land of Nimrod was the land of Assyria, which today is northern Babylon, near Akkad, in Iraq. Historians and linguists generally agree that Sumerian, Akkadian, and Egyptian are the oldest languages with a clear written record. All three are extinct, meaning they are no longer used and do not have any living descendants that can carry the language to the next generation. As for the oldest language that is still spoken, several contenders emerge. Hebrew and Arabic stand out among such languages for having timelines that linguists can reasonably trace, according to Hebrew. Although the earliest written evidence of these languages dates back only around 3,000 years, Hebrew says that both belong to the Afroasiatic language family, whose roots trace back to 18,000 to 8,000 BCE, or about 20,000 to 10,000 years ago.
Genesis 11 verses 5 to 7. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech.
Well, God came down and seen what the people had done and realized that with one language they will conspire together. That could spell trouble, so he better nip it in the bud. All their hard work to try to stay together ended up doing just the opposite. God gave them different languages, and now they can't finish building because they don't understand what each other is saying.
Genesis 11 verses 8 to 9. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth.
The people were like, well, we don't understand each other, so we'll just move on. Can you imagine what that day was like? 1 minute you are all working together and then, poof, the guy next to you starts speaking gibberish. He probably asked you, have you gone mad? I'm sure arguments ensued and maybe some fights. Eventually, most people just left and those that remained continued with the city. Cain's city of Enoch, or Eridu near Samaria, in southern Iraq, was started approximately 4300 BC during the Ubaid period. It was abandoned about 2663 BC, the time of the flood. All the people died. City rebuilding began again approximately 2500 BC, during the Dynastic II period, by one of Noah's great-grandsons, but the city fell to decline around 2050 BC because the people that were left no longer understood each other's language. This is not only biblical but historical and scientific fact. Just put the pieces together. Watch the Cain and Abel study for more about this city. The ruins of the Tower of Babel are said to be the Edamanenki Ziggurat. It is not known when this monument was first built because over the years so many have tried to rebuild it. Nebuchadnezzar II is associated with the Tower of Babel stele, a stone that depicts the reconstruction of the tower. His rebuild was destroyed. Alexander the Great ordered it to be rebuilt, but, upon returning to check on progress, found no one working on it, so he ordered it to be demolished and ready for rebuild. His death prevented the reconstruction. At some point you have to notice that God doesn't want it rebuilt. Peleg was the great-great-grandson of Shem. The Bible says Peleg got his name because in his days the earth was divided. I believe he was born at the time God confounded the languages and spread the peoples abroad. I also believe that after the people scattered, God moved the lands with the continental drift to further separate them. Peleg was born approximately 100 years after the flood and approximately 1,700 years after creation. The uninhabited earth at that time was possibly covered in ice, today known as the Ice Age. It's possible that the Ice Age existed before the flood, and the melting contributed to the waters of the flood, but my thought is that the Ice Age happened after the Earth was divided by the continental drift because the tectonic plates played a key role in the Ice Age. Along with solar radiation levels, it is believed that global warming and cooling is connected to plate tectonic activity. The shifting of the Earth's plates creates large-scale changes to continental masses, which impacts ocean and atmospheric currents, and triggers volcanic activity that releases carbon dioxide into the air. Scientists continue to debate the causes of Neoproterozoic freezes and the subsequent thaws. Volcanoes may be the force that both pushed the planet into the glaciations and also pulled it out. About 750 million years ago, most continents were clustered around the equator. Within this continental mix, geologists have identified evidence of what they call a large igneous province. The causes of ice ages are not fully understood for either the large-scale ice age or the smaller ebb and flow of glacial interglacial periods within an ice age. The consensus is that several factors are important: atmospheric composition, such as the concentration of carbon dioxide and methane, changes in Earth's orbit around the Sun, the motion of tectonic plates resulting in changes in the relative location and amount of continental and oceanic crust on Earth's surface, which affect wind and ocean currents. In a paper published in 1824, Jens Esmark proposed changes in climate as the cause of those glaciations. He attempted to show that they originated from changes in Earth's orbit. Some scientists believe that the Himalayas are a major factor in the current ice age, because these mountains have increased Earth's total rainfall and therefore the rate at which carbon dioxide is washed out of the atmosphere, decreasing the greenhouse effect. The Himalayas formation started about 70 million years ago when the Indo-Australian plate collided with the Eurasian plate. For much of its history, our planet has been hotter, sometimes much hotter, than it is today. But our planet has also been colder. Scientists may never know which period in our planet's 4.54 billion year history was the absolute coldest, but research has revealed a few contenders. All of these periods have been identified as ancient ice ages. The latest ice age peaked about 20,000 years ago, when global temperatures were likely 10 degrees Fahrenheit, or 5 degrees Celsius, colder than today. At the Pleistocene Ice Age's peak, massive ice sheets stretched over North America and Eurasia. We can thank ice sheets and their associated melt events for the Great Lakes, Niagara Falls, and even the channeled scablands in Washington and Oregon. Climate change has always existed. Now if the land was of one mass, the creatures by now would have wandered all over the land and settled in their habitats. They would have multiplied greatly. When God moved the lands, these creatures and people went along for the ride. By separating the land, it has now caused different climates. The plate tectonics have pushed mountains up higher and even made new ones. I doubt God did this in one day, but it didn't take millions, or billions, of years. It's a slower process now, but it's still separating. Maybe it's just the residual momentum of God moving them faster that keeps the lands moving today. Anyway, these creatures now have to adapt to their new surrounding, thus creating what seems like a new species. In New Mexico, at the White Sands Park, I seen mice. These mice are as white as the sand they live in. Their forefathers, as you'd say, were just ordinary mice, but their bodies adapted and changed to survive in their new environment. I even seen solid white lizards there. It's a scientific fact that animals change to survive. Animals and other creatures adapt to their surroundings, and over time it actually changes their DNA patterns. Over the years, nature and humans have crossbred these adapted animals, and thus that creates new ones within that species. It's not hard to see how all these different animals came to be. So, all of the different kinds of animals we know today were not on Noah's Ark. Noah only took the base pairs. Organisms can adapt to an environment in different ways. They can adapt biologically, meaning they alter body functions. An example of biological adaptation can be seen in the bodies of people living at high altitudes, such as Tibet. Tibetans thrive at altitudes where oxygen levels are up to 40% lower than at sea level. Breathing air that thin would cause most people to get sick, but Tibetans' bodies have evolved changes in their body chemistry. Evolution is real, but not one species evolving into a completely new species. Humans didn't evolve from apes that evolved from fish. That is ludicrous. Now what about the people? The Earth not only rotates around the Sun, but it also spins on an axis. In 2020, it had 28 record-breaking days of spinning faster since 1960. Today the Earth continues to spin faster and faster, resulting in shorter days. I don't feel a thing. Do you? The land masses were huge and the people on them probably didn't feel it since they were moving with them. I'd say at most they may have felt a massive earthquake if they were near a plate break. Just like the animals, people would have adapted to their new climates as well. Although, could you picture thinking you'd go visit a relative miles away, probably many days' journey, only to discover their land is now underwater? Or at least you'd think that happened. It was probably very disorienting and frightening to find the landscape changed. One significant outcome of the recent ice age was the development of Homo sapiens. Humans adapted to the harsh climate by developing such tools as the bone needle to sew warm clothing, and used the land bridge to spread to new regions. By the start of the warmer Holocene epoch, humans were in position to take advantage of the favorable conditions by developing agricultural and domestication techniques. Meanwhile, the mastodons, saber-toothed cats, giant ground sloths, and other megafauna that reigned during the glacial period went extinct by its end. 650,000 years ago, mammoths and mastodons cavorted on the plains of America, on the fringes of a massive sheet of ice almost 2 miles thick in places and as big as a continent, covering most of what are now Canada and the upper United States. Earth warmed, and the ice sheets receded, so people can now live in places once buried by ice like Quebec and Chicago. Correctly speaking, Earth remains in an ice age. Ice still sits thick atop Greenland and Antarctica, holding enough water to raise sea levels by hundreds of feet, and in recent decades, the ice sheets have begun to melt rapidly. The Earth is warming rapidly. Think about that for a moment. What does the Bible say that the Earth is reserved for? Reserved unto fire. It's coming, folks, and no matter how much you try to stop global warming, God has already spoke it through the prophets. Okay, where did the people go after God scattered them? God plainly told us that Japheth became the Gentile, or Caucasian people. They went north during Pangaea, becoming the countries we know today as England, Germany, Russia, France, Italy, Ireland, the Norwegian countries, etc. Shem covered the Middle East. Some of Ham's descendants stayed in this area too. Ham covered most of Africa, and during Pangaea they would have crossed into South America. When God moved the lands, all those on that plate moved with it. Ham's descendants not only became African but also Indian tribes like the Aztecs. Some of these Indian tribes became Mexican. Some of them made it to North America and became American Indians. It's possible that some of Japheth's descendants made it over to North America. Maybe Ham was of darker skin, or maybe the people adapted to their new environment by changing skin pigment. Warmer in the south, cooler in the north. I think that's why so many cultures have similar beliefs. There are petroglyphs of great floods and deities scattered among different civilizations that depict these similar beliefs. Their ancestors witnessed and passed down through the family these stories. Keep in mind that paganism was already in our world way before the land moved. As time goes by, the stories may change a little. New gods get invented or stories change due to misunderstanding. Thank God we have our King James. We may still have a misunderstanding, but, while there is a monarch on the throne in England, the stories can't be changed. Canaan descendants were cursed to be servants. What people does that sound like? Now, I know some say that it was Canaan that was cursed, not his children, therefore the African slaves don't fit as Canaan's children. In the Bible, the whole family is the first father. In this manner, Canaan's children are Canaan. Just like the children of Israel, or Jacob, are all Israel. Here's something to think about. Ham's family carries the AIP gene. Many African descendants are tall. Think basketball. Perhaps they have angelic genes. With the discovery of new worlds, the people moved to new lands. Japheth's descendants in England came to North America. Japheth's descendants later brought some of Ham's African descendants to North America. Japheth's Spaniards that found South America enslaved the local tribes already living there. And so, just like the animals, new peoples have been created by interracial combinations. I'm Cherokee and Irish. My ancestors are from Ham, Cherokee, and Japheth, Irish. Japheth was blessed to be enlarged. His Caucasian people are huge in numbers. Shem was blessed to be the lineage of Jesus Christ, the Hebrew or Jewish people, along with many Arab nations, and there are many Caucasian Christians, Japheth, that live in the Middle East, Shem's tents. I do find it fascinating that the people that started in the Americas were less civilized than the East. Maybe because they started with less people? I'd think, during Pangaea, not many would roam too far from the cities that were built. Maybe after the lands moved, they had nothing modern at the time, causing slower development. All individuals are 99.9% the same genetically. The differences in the sequence of DNA among individuals, or genetic variation, explain some of the differences among people, such as physical traits and higher or lower risk for certain diseases. Inheriting one gene from the mother and one from the father has some advantages. For instance, if one of the chromosomes has a recessive allele that causes a disease, the healthy dominant allele on the other chromosome may be able to reduce the severity of the disease or even prevent it. Also, mixing the genes can create completely new combinations of genes, which may help future generations to better adapt to environmental conditions or may protect them from diseases. Antarctica was once a tropical forest. There is evidence of the trees and creatures that once lived there. Now it's way too cold and windy to live there. The only ones living there now are scientists. Scientists have discovered remnants of a swampy temperate rainforest that thrived in Antarctica about 90 million years ago. They were surprised to find fossil remnants of this forest in a sediment core sample retrieved in February 2017 from the ocean floor in the Amundsen Sea off the coast of West Antarctica. This sample contained ancient forest soil with an abundance of fossilized plant pollen and spores. CT scans revealed a dense network of fossilized plant roots. What's astonishing about this discovery is its location. 90 million years ago, this West Antarctic forest was just 560 miles, or 900 kilometers from the then South Pole. Yet its climate was surprisingly mild. Here's another thought: what if the land actually separated during the flood? That would mean that the Americas were pushed away without people or animals. By the end of the flood, they knew how to build a large boat to withstand the ocean. So, maybe that is how they populated the land. But, how would the creatures have gotten there? Or maybe, the earth broke up and moved slow enough that people and creatures were able to move before it separated too far. I don't think it happened during the flood. I just threw that out there to get you thinking. Here is more proof of the flood and the changing environments. Petrified wood forms when trees go under water and get buried by layers of mud, ash, and sediment. Over time, these minerals crystallize within the wood's cellular structure, forming stone-like material. Wood today doesn't petrify naturally. It just rots away. Basically, science tells us that this only happened during one certain point in history. Scientific studies of Arizona's petrified forest tells us that that area was once near the equator and possibly a tropical area. The petrified trees in the petrified forest are now extinct trees. Perhaps they were the only type of trees that could ever go through this process. Maybe some of these were gopher wood. Despite many samples being older than dinosaurs, petrified wood can form in as little as 5,000 to 10,000 years compared to older specimens. Fossils are formed in many different ways, but most are formed when a living organism, such as a plant or animal, dies and is quickly buried by sediment, such as mud, sand, or volcanic ash. Soft tissues often decompose, leaving only the hard bones or shells behind, but in special circumstances the soft tissues of organisms can be preserved. After the organism has been buried, more sediment, volcanic ash or lava can build up over the top of the buried organism and eventually all the layers harden into rock. They become lithified. It is only when the process of erosion, when the rocks are worn back down and washed away, occurs that these once living organisms are revealed to us from within the stones. As we learned in the previous episode, there are fossilized whales and other sea life on top of mountains. They got there during the flood. When the water began to dry up, the creatures were stranded on dry land and died, being buried in the mud. Over time more layers were added through volcanoes and wind trapping these remains in the rock strata. The Grand Canyon. Science says it was carved out by the Colorado River. The canyon is a 3,000-foot drop down to the river. The river is an average of 40 feet deep with the deepest at 85 feet. Rivers can't flow below sea level. It needs a relatively flat yet high elevation to form a canyon. Canyons are formed by tectonic activity. Tectonic uplift creates plateaus. Rivers then cut through these elevated areas of land and creates deep canyons. When you look at the Grand Canyon, you can see the strata that we learned about in the Noah and the flood video. Basically, when God moved the land, it created plateaus from the tectonic activity, thus encouraging water flow to form a river that caused these plateaus to erode the ground more and more with the help of winds and possibly volcanic activity. The faster the water flows, the faster it will erode the ground. I'm sure the water was moving at pretty good speed when the land moved. Beginning with John Wesley Powell, the geologist who led the pioneering river expedition through Grand Canyon in 1869, geologists have recognized three main packages of rocks exposed in Grand Canyon: the Vishnu basement rocks, which is the igneous and metamorphic rocks of the three granite gorges; the Grand Canyon supergroup, which is tilted, mostly sedimentary rocks; and the layered Paleozoic rocks, which is the flat-lying strata in the upper two-thirds of the canyon. This means that the first layer of rock in the Grand Canyon was before the flood. After the flood, horizontal sedimentary rock layers were added when the waters shifted and receded. The second layer of rock was formed when God moved the lands and caused tilted sedimentary and igneous rock layers. As we learned, rock tilt happens when tectonic plates collide and push the rock strata at an angle. This process also causes mountains to grow higher. Remember the sea life that fossilized? These were pushed up along with the earth, causing them to sit on top of mountains. The top layer of rock at the Grand Canyon has been forming since the earth divided due to volcanoes and wind. Just as we learned how strata is formed in the previous video. The story begins almost 2 billion years ago with the formation of the igneous and metamorphic rocks of the inner gorge. Above these old rocks lie layer upon layer of sedimentary rock, each telling a unique part of the environmental history of the Grand Canyon region. Then, between 70 and 30 million years ago, through the action of plate tectonics, the whole region was uplifted, resulting in the high and relatively flat Colorado Plateau. Finally, beginning just 5 to 6 million years ago, the Colorado River began to carve its way downward. Further erosion by tributary streams led to the canyon's widening. Still today, these forces of nature are at work, slowly deepening and widening the Grand Canyon. I've been asked, how could the world have populated so fast if it's only a little over 6,000 years old? The world population when I was born was 3.761 billion. In 2025, it's 8.2 billion. That is an increase of 4.439 billion people in 53 years. The more the population grows, the faster it will grow. Remember this verse? Genesis 6 verse 3, "And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. After the flood, the lifespan of humans started decreasing. Maybe the change of climates, the lack of certain plants, or the new meat diet caused a change in our bodies. Maybe more diseases came about as the population grew. Maybe animals fearing man now caused more deaths from animals. I'm thinking God decided the longer we live, the more trouble we cause. The oldest person on record as of 2025 was 122 when she died in 1997. God allowed her 2 extra years. I'm no scientist, but I find it amazing how a so-called collection of made-up stories, written long before any of these scientific studies, basically confirms these scientific studies. While I feel scientists can't seem to get dates right, I'm confident in many studies and findings. Science can figure out the how and why, just not the when. They go by what they understand, what they see, and try to make it sensible. That's why they change their minds constantly. They can't understand many biblical things because God's power is hard to fathom. A lot can happen in a little over 6,000 years. Especially with God in control. With all the evidence that we have in our world, why does science and many others not believe the biblical creation accounts? Why do they fight so hard to prove it wrong? If the Bible is this accurate about the beginning, how much more accurate is it about the end? If they believe the beginning, then they have to believe in God, and therefore they have to believe in the end. That's very scary for many people because they want to continue living their lives the way they want, so if they ignore the truth, then it doesn't exist. Right? Now that's scary. Our brothers and sisters are going to burn because they choose to ignore the truth. This concludes our creation series. I hope you enjoyed learning how science and the Bible actually agree. Only the Bible knew it first. If you omit the millions and billions of years and put it all together, it all makes sense. It's absolutely amazing. Do you know what else is amazing? If you watched all 6 videos of this creation series, congratulations! You have just read and understood Genesis 1 verse 1 through Genesis 11 verse 9. Keep up the good work because you too are one of God's amazing creations.
Acts 17 verses 24 to 28. God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands, neither is worshipped with men's hands, as though he needed anything, seeing he giveth to all life and breath and all things, and hath made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell on all the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed, and the bounds of their habitation, that they should seek the Lord, if haply they might feel after him, and find him, though he be not far from every one of us. For in him we live, and move, and have our being, as certain also of your own poets have said, for we are also his offspring.